All right, so welcome everyone. This is our joint health and balance class. So we'll get started. We'll go back and forth between stretching and balance work. So let's actually start on our feet. I know sometimes we do our, not sometimes, but always we do our neck rotations. And yeah, we could kill two birds with one stone when we do that and stretch our neck. So if we are on our feet, we're here. And again, just feet together. We have our Romberg stance here. Feet are close together. And then we're just going to stand still. Just be aware of any little imbalances. If your ankles are aching or shaking, be aware. Actually, I'm going to take my shoes off. Feel like, especially if I'm going to go for a run after, just being barefoot will at least allow my feet to collapse a little bit, which will allow my arches to get a little bit of a stretch. All right, so let's look left to right. You can just rotate gently. We don't want to do sudden movements. Up and down. So maybe you could give me some ideas, but since I have to pretty much just really saturate canvas with a lot of information and pretty much have to overwhelm it enough where you folks have plenty of learning materials for the week. But again, you don't have to go through everything or anything. It just has to be there. Let's go ahead and close our eyes while we're here.
Think you're doing a really good job. You always post the videos or little educational stuff.
So yeah, so I was
I
thinking of
keep up with
adding
it because of my
like
schedule, but you do good.
yeah, so every week I think there's gonna be like a lesson, maybe for like example, for like this class, there might be one week where I talk about focusing on stretching the muscles around the head, your jaw, and your neck, and then maybe um, open your eyes. Okay, and then let's just start with some high knee marches. So slow high knee marches. So yeah, so for example, like one week, let's say we focus on the neck and it's for this class. So maybe there's videos on like the anatomy of the neck and like how the muscles work and what could cause those issues. And then what I was thinking too, which I know it's gonna take a lot of my time, but I don't mind, is gonna be to do a demonstration video of about 20 to 30 seconds of each stretch. Um, and then just go over like the details to like make sure we're doing the stretches correctly. Um, good. Let's go ahead and do the quad stretch. So if you need to hold on to anything, grab with your chair or a table if you want to work on your balance, but grab right above your ankle and pull back. And I think for like strength and conditioning, I could have like a short video again for every movement. And it would just be like almost like a library of when you forget how to do a movement, you could just go and find it. And then
What about some cognitive exercises for
right,
mental health?
yeah, yeah. So I could do that as well. Yeah, that's a good one too. Like I said, anything that even if you have some interests or you don't have to start searching through Google yourself and you just have like this shell where anything that's like health related is on there. That's almost like what I want to create for each class. So that's yeah, just looking for ideas for that stuff that makes sense and worthwhile. Let's go back to the chair. So yeah, so like for this class, like this one, obviously let's go ahead and sit on our left hand, bring our right hand over. The Monday class is a little bit more active, and this one's more relaxed, but more like therapeutic. So maybe for this class, like every week, I could also like have like a supplement or a vitamin of the week that folks could benefit from, and just put information on that supplement or vitamin, um, or just anything that has to do with like health and therapeutic wellness. And then the other one, it could be more of like the active strength and cardio um, information. So yeah, so like I said, I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff, but um, even the baseline testing that we did for our Monday class, like I think that's a big lead for that class, for that show. But yeah, I'll write that down. Let's do our next circle. So gently just rotate your shoulder, your neck, your head around your shoulder. And then if you're really tech savvy, what you could do too is I could have some like discussions or assignments where if there's an exercise that you want to work on, you could always just record yourself doing it and upload it. And I could just like, give you feedback, or you could respond to things in with the video instead of typing. I know when after competitions, I have my team switch directions. I have them answer about 8 to 10 questions about their race. And some of the questions are a little bit require a little bit more thinking than others. Um, but I've noticed that when I've made that assignment more of like they have to upload a video and record themselves talking, I definitely get more genuine responses than them just like, typing out 2 or 3 sentences. Let's look left and add a little bit of pressure to your right side. So that's what I do like about the video. I know it could be, a little taxing, or it's an extra task to add and upload the actual footage, but the responses are great. And um, actually one of um my athletes, let's turn right. I felt like he put me on notice yesterday when I was reviewing his assignment, and very good. Let's bring our hands behind our head and elbows down. So anyways, this last week we competed on a cross country course that had a few challenging hills in there. And he didn't have that great of a race. So after the race, he came to me, and the boys team, let's bring that right hand over. The men's team didn't do too great, so all of us weren't happy, weren't really excited to talk more about the race. So when he came to me and asked me about, that he thought the issue with the his race was the hills, and that they were challenging. And at that moment, I just saw it as him complaining, because we practice at hills, like we do lots of training in hills. And it almost just seemed like, and a lot of the athletes do that, they see a hill, and before we even compete, they might just use that already as an excuse why they're gonna do that. They'll tell me, Coach, if I do bad on this race, it's because of that hill right there. So, you almost see it as like complaining already. And let's do our opposite shoulder tap. So this athlete came in and told me, and that's exactly what it sounded like. And so I was like, look, like we can't be complaining about hills all the time. Like we have to like push through them and stay alert and just be strong as we're running up them. And I guess that response didn't sit well with him. So on his race recap yesterday, he called me out and he was kind of like, yeah, I felt like the response he gave me was not one that I expect from a coach. I was actually trying to learn something, was hoping you would give me some advice. Um, Maybe it sounded like I was complaining but I was pretty disappointed with the words you had to say to me after I was looking for some guidance. And I heard that and I was just like, oh wow. So as soon as I was done watching his video, I gave him a phone call and we talked on the phone. Let's rotate our hands and now let's do our triceps press downs. And yeah, and I apologize and I think, yeah, I hadn't been in a situation like that where, I made a student, um, I guess my words just almost seemed careless to him, from my behalf, towards him on Friday. And yeah, so we talked for about 20-25 minutes about, what we really need to work on with the hills. So I think I corrected myself, hopefully. But yeah, but it was one of those things that if I don't see that on video, then maybe I might have I definitely made a bad impression, but I think I was able to at least correct that moment. So it was tough. And you hear someone, and I was just like, like, should I take that personal? Let's do our farm drops. But I was like, no, this guy, he's a teenager. He's learning. Like, I can't be try to be some alpha person and just, disregard how he felt that day. So yeah, hopefully he feels better about the situation. So let's continue with that. So again, if you have your hand on your shoulder, you should feel that shoulder rotating, that front delt activating. Switch.
You are a very dedicated teacher, you know that, eh?
I appreciate that, Miss Wynn. Yeah, I was venting to my wife yesterday, and she was like, I think you're more of like a counselor to your athletes than a coach. And yeah, sometimes it feels that way and let's go out. And I hope I'm saying the right things to these younger adults. So before I get out of hand, I just shut up and don't say anything. So I'm just like I don't want to overstep either. So oh, I'm back. All right, very good. Let's get back on our feet. Okay. We're gonna do our tandem stance. So you could have that chair nearby. All right, so right foot in front of our left. So, yeah, today we're gonna also do our visualization exercise. I think I mentioned it last week. So I usually have We're in a conference room and I have the students just kind of like shut down and rest on the floor or leaning towards a wall on the comfortable chair. And for the women's team, their race is a 5 kilometer race. So it's 3.1 miles. Let's start looking left to right. And so the idea is to, just close your eyes and visualize as detailed as you can, the day of competition. So I usually like start off with like, all right, your alarm's going off, you wake up, you're rolling out of bed because you want to stay in bed a little bit longer, and you get up and you look for your breakfast. So it's as detailed as one wants to make it. So, but I feel like the more detailed it is, the more realistic it feels up and down. So we did that last week, and then I had them running, the course. Like you're at the start line, the starter raises the gun goes up, and you take off sprinting, and and you start your race, and you're feeling good. So I do that for the duration of the race. So it could be, the girls race for about 20 to 23 minutes. So I try to maybe speak about the race for about maybe 10 minutes or so. Um, and yeah, so got some good feedback after the race. The girls performed. Let's close your eyes. Again, if you feel unsafe, separate your feet, open your eyes. The ladies performed very well. It's the best finish we've had in our conference in the last 30 years. Um, so they were happy, and they mentioned that the visualization we did last week helped them. So we're gonna do that again today. Um, Open your eyes. Okay, elevate your back foot. Yes, we're gonna try that today, and I'm not as familiar with the race course for this one, so I was studying the course yesterday, but I think we'll manage. So it was cool. I thought it's one of those things where if you have people that are immature or can't, really focus, or have little attention span, it can be a very distracting practice. But yeah, they all surprised me and they all paid attention. No one was giggling or anything like that. And let's try that knee up and back. So yeah, so I think our group's, mature enough to go through it again. So we're gonna be practicing that this afternoon again. I think I felt better too after doing it myself with them. Very good. All right, let's go ahead and walk the tightrope. So we're gonna do it walking it flat foot. So one foot in front of the other. Yeah, this time we're leaving on Thursday. The race is in San Diego. Um, we'll leave tomorrow afternoon. They race Friday morning. And yeah.
Where in San Diego?
Oh man, it's not too far from the airport because let's go on our toes now. I can't remember. It's like some naval place, like a park that's along the water. But it's near the airport because the starters have to wait for the planes to fly over, um, because it's so loud that the kids won't hear the gun go off. So, but yeah, it's really close to the airport near the water. Very good. All right, we'll do a little bit of let's actually do our left foot in front of our right. I was gonna do a little bit of strength work, but I don't want to fatigue our legs. So we'll incorporate that towards the end. So left foot in front of your right now. Let me find that information. That doesn't help. It just says NTC part. Not sure. $2,400 Cushion Road. All right, let's look left to right. Do you guys hear the Dodgers one? Up and down. Cherise, did you hear the Dodgers one?
I didn't watch it. I didn't have, I wasn't home. Next year.
I was just watching, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel Live. They had the Dodgers there last night. And yeah, I guess some of their stars are in free agency. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and close our eyes.
Maybe some will come to the Angels.
Hopefully not.
I know one guy they let go of the Dodgers. Oh, what's his name? I think it was Taylor.
Chris Taylor.
I forget his name, but he was on the Dodgers a long time. He played different positions and then they let him go and he was good. And I was like, oh, he came to the Angels.
Yeah, I think it's Chris Taylor.
Forget.
I know the Dodgers had two pitchers from Tampa Bay that lost to the Dodgers back in 2020, but now they're with the Dodgers. So, and
How they move around.
yeah, they're both getting interviewed and they're like, how's it feel, to get beat by the Dodgers 5 years ago, but now you're with them? And they're
Yeah.
hey, if you can't beat them, join them.
Join them. I think Otani did.
So let's elevate that rear leg.
Don't get me going. I'll be quiet now.
So yeah, I think we should. So you just reach back, and we'll move forward. Yeah, I did a lot of lunges yesterday, and I think that's what got my glutes pretty sore. So yeah, lunges is a really good exercise. So, all right, let's drop back down to the chair. So that's some shoulder work to go through. And let's with our snow angels. Yeah, last night I was telling Julian, I was just trying to get him to bed. So I was telling him that I wasn't feeling well. And he he was very caring and tentative to me and was telling me that he was gonna take care of me and that he was gonna go to sleep next to me so I could be okay. So that's how I got him to go to sleep. And so he was cute too. He was like, Daddy, in the morning, I'm gonna make you all the breakfast. So he's gonna make me breakfast as well. That's what he said. So it's always a struggle to wake him up sometimes. So this morning, let's go and do our shoulder press. So hammer grip, a little bit more narrow. Press up, and then elbows all the way down. And exhale. Inhale. So yeah, so this morning I'm like, Julian, I'm not feeling well. Can you make me breakfast? And nope. This time he was like, no, make it yourself. I was just like, oh man, well, where's the little sweet caring guy from last night? So he's a different little beast in the morning. Okay, rest a little bit. Okay, we're gonna go with our fist right in front of us. And then as far up as you can. This is just gonna work on stretching your upper mid back a little bit more. Okay. And then let's go ahead, elbows at your side, and then lift them up.
Julio, what is the yellow thing sitting on the table?
Oh, it's just a plushie.
Oh,
Yeah. It's a duck. Yeah. It's kind of random. Ah, all right, let's go with our trunk rotation using our chair. So sit towards the front of the chair, use the side of the chair, grip it, and then gently rotate to your right. Reach it a little bit more. Relax. Let's go to the other side. And relax. Okay, hip openers. So sitting again towards the front. And I always choose towards the front because sometimes the chair does get in the way. So bring that right leg out. Make sure it's not collapsing. I feel like my hip is not strong enough that I always need my hand to support it. Yeah, so after this race, we have next weekend off. And as long as they qualify, we will be ending our season in Fresno the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So that's always the goal. But hopefully for the ladies, we finished top 10 in the state. Right, bring that knee back. Let's go ahead and bring that right ankle And that left knee.
Julio, did your Batman socks get holes in them?
You saw that.
I couldn't resist because you like socks and I saw that.
Yeah,
But what happened to Batman
I
socks?
know. Yeah. So I think my wife gifted me 2 different years of this like decorative box. One of them was Batman, and it had 12 pairs of socks for the 12 days of Christmas. Let's push add some pressure on that knee. But they're really thin, but I like them because I just sweat a lot. So they're thin and breathable, but they're thin enough that they didn't last more than maybe a year or two. I don't know. But yeah, but you saw one of them got busted through the heel, and the other one, my toes were popping off.
I figured you were sad if you posted.
Yeah, yeah, because I probably have maybe Batman out of those 12 pairs, I maybe have like 4 pairs left. And then there's a one with Christmas. You probably see me with some red socks or
Yes.
socks. Yeah, I probably have like 5 pairs left too. But I like the Batman ones because they're black or dark gray, so I could wear those casually anywhere. But like the Christmas ones, I can't show up somewhere with red socks or blue socks. So yeah, left ankle on that right knee. So yeah, it's okay. I mean, I need to get rid of some stuff too. But it's my wife makes fun of me too sometimes because I don't know if you remember, but I used to have 2 pairs of blue shorts. I still have them. I just
Yes.
I'm off them. Yeah.
I remember.
Yes, I remember those. So it's almost as blue as these. So my wife always asks me like, why do you always wear those blue shorts to your Zoom classes? And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna walk outside wearing those blue shorts. Like, I'm not gonna be wearing these out in public. And then she's like, well, what do you think? You think your students aren't watching your blue shorts? So yeah, so I don't wear those as much. And
I love,
I personally don't even one of them I don't like because I
We
almost
don't notice it.
yeah, no, I didn't notice. Blue,
Reese,
that's my favorite color.
let's fish down. But the length on one of them was a little bit too long. That one time when I was doing squats, on my way down, my right knee got caught on like the seam of like the length of it, and on my way up, I couldn't unbend my knee. So after that, I never wore them for lifting. Because yeah, if I was lifting something a lot heavier, that could have been an injury. So
Now you got a blue shirt on. You must like that color.
yeah, so yeah,
It's good.
this is Dodger Blue. Yeah, this is an old hoodie. This hoodie is maybe I don't know, like 16 years old, and it still looks like I bought it last week. I love it.
Comfortable.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and do our leg extensions. So recline, reach back, and then extend. So that knee close to your chest. Extend that lower leg. Let's switch. We might just get through our chair and standing exercises today. I was yapping a lot at the beginning of class. All right, so let's bring that knee in, heel in, and then extend out and drop that heel. Yeah, I have some outfits that the colors I just don't like or hear what they look like. So when I have my home workouts, that's the only time I use them. Try to wear my more presentable stuff out in public. Let's switch. We we folks can't deny that you have some of those outfits too. Maybe it's your Sunday morning cleaning shirt or something, or I have a Mickey Mouse onesie as well that I only wear on Christmas or when it's really cold, but just indoors. All right, so we're gonna go with our 24 squats right now. So if you're doing the regular squats, then I want you to give me 3 sets of 8. If you're doing the single leg extended or elevated, then we're gonna do 8 of the regular squats and then 8 of one leg and then 8 on the other. So we're doing a total of 24. Okay, so let's do set number 1. So again, just we don't want to rock our torso. Have your feet flat, heels are stabbing the ground, and then just add pressure through your heels, up your knees, and then through your hips, come up, back down. Keep it going, getting a total of 8. All right, let's go with our second set. So if that leg is extended, I'm gonna extend my right leg, okay, or elevate it so that left leg is doing all the work. All right, ready and begin. Four, five, 6, 7, 8. All right, rest a little bit. So again, if we're doing the regular sit-ups, then yeah, you're doing 3 rounds of these. Okay, here we go. Left leg elevated and begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Awesome. Very good. All right, you don't have too much remaining on the chair. So next one we want to do is just rotate our heel from this sitting position, elevate the heel a little bit off the ground, then just rotate that heel out and then back in. Okay. Just rotate that heel out. If you have your hands around your thigh, you should feel, the muscles and tendons on the sides of your thigh activating. Right, switch. Very good. Right, for here, flat, let's go ahead and do our calf raises. So just give me about 20 of these heel raises, calf raises, heel raises. Same thing. Working on stretching the calf. A little bit of a stretch on your arch. Is anyone going out of town for Thanksgiving? Everyone's staying local. Right, now we're gonna be relaxed. Just relax your feet a little bit. You can sit back for this next one. And then now let's go with toe raises. For 20. Right, right leg is elevated, doing your ABCs with your ankles. Get some mobility on that ankle joint. Switch. Right, and then the last one we're gonna do during our chair before we get on our feet are just our clawing at the floor. Okay, so claw at the floor. All right, great. Let's get on our feet. Let's do a couple stretches, and then we will use the foam roller to work on our shoulders a little bit, but drink a little bit of water. We're close to being done. Oh, yeah. On our feet here, let's just go gentle trunk rotation. Goes gently left to right. Go ab circles. Okay, just pop.